Well, good evening. I'm just in from the day of work. I've been here at the logging camp, just kind of finishing up the season here. I'm actually doing some field work on the farm across the road and put up a couple little video clips there of the horses today. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about the season we're in. We're in the season of Eastertide, and tomorrow is Low Sunday. I attend the traditional Latin Mass, so we call it Low Sunday, but it's also known as the Divine Mercy Sunday. And what I was thinking last week, uh, while I was driving home from church, well, not home, back to camp, but coming back from church, I was thinking. I usually try to meditate on the sermon and on spiritual things, sort of continue the contemplative mode that I had in during Mass. And I was thinking about my life, and I was thinking about the great gift of grace that we receive at Easter time, and the I began pondering some of the things I've done in my life and things I ought to have done and things I ought not to have done, and I'm a convert to Catholicism, and I was an evangelical Protestant for the first 30 some years of my life. And so I did a lot of things that I thought were in accordance with the will of God and in accordance with the scriptures as I understood them at the time. And I got thinking about that saying in Matthew's gospel, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, did we not do all these things? Matthew chapter 7. And I got thinking about those words in the 23rd verse of Matthew 7:23. And I think they are perhaps the most terrible words, the seven most terrible words in the English language. Words that I hope I never hear. And they are the words that Jesus will see, the judgment he will see. Depart from me. I never knew you. Depart from me. I never knew you. And if we skip ahead a few chapters to the 25th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, there's the parable of the 10 virgins. And what are they told? They say, I know you not. And a few verses later, he will say, you know, you you didn't feed me, you didn't clothe me, you didn't visit me in prison, and he will say, depart from me, ye cursed, and into the place prepared for the devil and his angels. Hell was not made for man. Hell was made for Satan and the angels who followed him. Not made for man. We go there by choice, but we were never made for there. But those terrible words, I got quite emotional thinking about that. The words I never want to hear. The terrible words, depart from me. I never knew you. So I got thinking about that. We We do a lot of things in our life which we think are, meritorious and in accordance with the scriptures and in accordance with the will of God, and we think along certain lines and we proceed, take courses of action based on what we perceive to be the um, the right course, and and yet we are mistaken, and we find out in a calamitous way, that we were off the mark, even though we thought we were right. There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but things can seem to be one way and actually be another. And so, yeah, the idea of taking those words, "Depart from me, I never knew you." It's the opposite of the call of the gospel, where he says, "Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will refresh you." He's got the invitation is extended now. Come, come unto me. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. There is this loving invitation, inviting people, men and women and boys and girls and teenagers and everybody, come. The people whom he calls are most welcome if they hear his voice and respond. But we are called to respond in a particular way. And then once we have responded, we are to act in a particular way. There's a very much a particularity to the call and to what we are asked to do in living out the gospel. It's not a choose your own adventure. It's not a make it up as you go. It's not just whatever floats your boat. And when you look at the history of the church for, all of 2,000 years, and even before that, under the old covenant, you see a lot of people deciding for themselves that I'm going to just make up my own little rubric here. I'm just going to make up my own little religion. You read some of the passages in the prophets, and they don't hold back. They're like, you've done this and this and this, and you've done this and this and this, and God is going to render judgment upon you if you do not turn. And this goes on, continuously. It's this endless cycle of, you know, God sends prophets to warn the Old Testament church and the people, individuals, named individuals, people in general. They usually name the leaders and the key people, and the general mass of the people. They're not named, but they're sort of included in these general condemnations. And so the promise that God gives us is ours if we fulfill our end of the bargain. It's not too complicated. You see in the Old Covenant, people were just constantly not keeping up their end of the bargain. These people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. This just goes on and on and on, all through the Old Testament. But it's not so much different in the New. When you read like the passages in Matthew 7, when it says, you know, Lord, Lord, did we not do all these things? We were casting out devils and, doing the whole, let's say I was a televangelist and I was bringing in the bucks and supporting missions and orphanages and here, there, and everywhere. And I was doing all this great stuff. What does Jesus say? You know, it's like, depart from me. I never knew you. So how do we know, right? How do we know? How can we know if we're on the right track? It's like a railway, you know. How does the engineer know the railway line's going along and there's a switch or a turnout, whatever you want to call it, a switch. And let's say it's set for straight ahead or it's set to go off to the spur line or off to a siding or just change to a branch line. How does the engineer know what track he's supposed to be on? If that signals for him, if that switch is switched for him, or if he should wait? Well, there's train orders. That's how you know. But let's pretend that the Bible is not precise. Let's pretend that the Bible is not precise. It says we're supposed to be on the track. Well, we're on the track, but now there's a signal up ahead and there's a switch. And now, what should we be doing here? Is there a slow order in place? Do we switch tracks? Well, this is where the church comes in, because the church has 2,000 years of practice at determining things, plus the first apostles heard it from Jesus, you know, word of mouth, right from the horse's mouth, as the saying goes colloquially. And so it's easy to read the Bible and still not know what track we should be on. We know we're supposed to be on a track going, to heaven somehow or another. This is, and people assume they're on the right track. But what does Jesus say in Matthew 7? Well, you weren't on the right track. You just weren't on the right track. You were on a track. You were doing all kinds of train things, but ringing your bell and blowing your whistle and chugging along, but you weren't on the right track. And he'll say, depart. And those are words that I never want to hear. Depart from me. I never knew you. So I'm grateful for the gift of Easter, for the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. And I'm just grateful that I have been given enough light to see my way to the foot of the cross, and there I remain. So I don't want this to be too long of a video. I've had a long day myself, and my tea's getting cold. So I want to hear when the day comes, whether I will or not. I don't know. I don't know. But what I want to hear in my heart of hearts are the words, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Those are the seven best words in the English language. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Take care, folks.